Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Always exciting to dive in.
And today we're going to be looking at something that I think a lot of us have a personal connection with. We're going to be talking about Disney Plus.
Okay.
Now, obviously, huge expectations for this platform when it launched.
Right.
Everyone was sort of like, is this going to be the Netflix killer?
Yeah.
But so far, I think the picture's been a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of twists and turns.
So we're going to be looking at an article that was sent in by a listener.
Great.
Called, the English translation is basically Company Disney Navigating a Mountain of Challenges.
Oh, wow.
It sounds a little ominous.
Yeah.
It was originally published in Korean, so the title is a little different.
Okay.
But it's by a writer named Gu Hyunmo.
All right.
And it really takes a deep look at what's going on with Disney Plus, the ups and downs, the challenges, and where they might be headed.
Sounds fascinating.
So let's dive in. And I think one of the first things that this article kind of points out is that, Disney Plus came out of the gate with so much potential, right?
Of course.
I mean, they have this amazing library of classic content. They own Marvel. They own Star Wars. They were poised for success. But the article actually uses this really interesting analogy to describe Disney's early struggles.
I'm intrigued. What is it?
They compare it to what's known as the Gonghanju.
Gonghanju.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not familiar.
So this is a term that's used in, I guess, the Korean soccer world.
Okay. Interesting.
And it basically refers to the historical difficulty that the Chinese soccer team has had in beating South Korea.
Huh. So it's like this idea that there's this mental block almost.
Exactly.
Like an intimidation factor.
Yeah. And the article uses this to kind of show that there was this gap between what people were expecting from Disney Plus and how it actually performed in the beginning.
So they had the talent, the resources, but something wasn't clicking.
Right. It's like they had all the ingredients for a championship team, but they just couldn't seem to score that winning goal right away.
That's a great way to put it.
They had the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which was like this massive global phenomenon.
Absolutely.
But then after the Infinity Saga ended, some of their original content didn't quite live up to expectations.
So they kind of fumbled the ball a bit.
Yeah, and it wasn't just limited to the U.S. market. Their Korean originals also kind of struggled to find an audience.
With the exception of Moving, right?
Yeah, Moving seemed to be the one exception it really took off. But overall, the early years were a little bit rocky.
So it sounds like they had a bit of a learning curve figuring out how to translate their success to the streaming world.
Exactly. It wasn't as simple as just putting their existing content on a platform and watching the subscribers roll in.
Right. They had to adapt to the demands of this new landscape, the binge-watching culture, the need for constant fresh content.
And figure out how to create compelling original programming that would capture the attention of viewers who have so many options these days.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Definitely. But it seems like lately they've been starting to find their footing.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, they've had some recent successes with original series like Shogun.
Oh, I heard that was really good.
And The Bear.
Oh, yeah. That's gotten rave reviews.
Both of those have been critically acclaimed. They've got high ratings on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, and people are actually talking about them.
That's always a good sign.
So maybe they're finally starting to score those goals.
Maybe they just needed a new coach or a change in strategy.
It's like they've finally figured out their playbook.
Right. And they're starting to build some momentum.
And even within the MCU, there have been signs of life.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about Marvel? Are they still relying heavily on that franchise?
Oh, absolutely. It's still a cornerstone of their strategy. But the article points to Werewolf by Night as an example of how they can still produce high-quality content even within that established universe.
Werewolf by Night was a pleasant surprise. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it showed that they're capable of taking risks and trying new things, even with a franchise as big and as important as the MCU.
It's like they're not afraid to experiment a little, to try different genres and tones.
Exactly. They're not just churning out the same old superhero formula.
Which is important if they want to keep audiences engaged.
Right. You need to keep things fresh and exciting.
So it sounds like they're making progress. No. But what about the numbers? Have they been able to translate this creative momentum into subscriber growth?
Yeah, that's the real test, right?
Absolutely. The bottom line is what matters in the streaming world.
And the numbers are actually looking pretty good. As of June 2024, they've hit 153.8 million subscribers.
Wow. That's a pretty significant jump.
It is. It shows that they're definitely attracting a large audience, and their profitability is also on the rise.
Okay, so they're not just gaining subscribers, they're actually making money.
Exactly. Their combined OTT business, which includes Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, reached $320 million in operating profit.
That's impressive.
And they've projected an ambitious goal of $1 billion in operating profit for their OTT business by 2025.
Wow, they're really aiming high.
They are. It seems like they're confident that they can turn this into a very profitable venture.
Well, it sounds like they're making smart moves both creatively and strategically.
Yeah, it's not just about having great content. It's about having a solid business plan and knowing how to navigate this complex and constantly evolving landscape.
Exactly. They need to be adaptable and innovative to stay ahead of the curve.
Right, and it seems like they're starting to figure that out. But as with any business, there are always challenges, and we'll delve into those in our next segment.
Sounds good. I'm ready to unpack those challenges.
Stay tuned.
All right, so let's dig into some of these challenges that Disney Plus is facing.
Yeah, because it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Right, even with their recent successes, they're not out of the woods yet.
So what are some of the big hurdles that they need to overcome?
Well, one of the biggest is something that's affecting the entire media industry, the decline of their traditional cable business.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a trend that's been happening for a while now, as more and more people are cutting the cord and switching to streaming services.
It's like cable is becoming the dinosaur of the entertainment world.
Yeah, it's facing an existential crisis.
So how is Disney handling this transition? Are they just letting their cable networks fade away, or are they trying to adapt?
Well, it seems like they're trying to do both. They're still investing in some of their cable networks like ESPN.
Right, ESPN is still a huge draw for them, especially for live sports.
Exactly, and they're experimenting with ways to integrate ESPN content into their streaming offerings like ESPN Plus.
So they're trying to kind of bridge the gap between the two worlds.
Right, they're trying to give people a reason to stick with Disney even if they're not subscribing to cable anymore.
It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, in a way. And they're also bundling their streaming services together, offering discounts if you subscribe to both Disney Plus and Hulu, for example.
That's a smart strategy.
It's about creating a value proposition for viewers, giving them more bang for their buck.
Right, because let's face it, the streaming market is getting pretty crowded these days.
It's a jungle out there.
And consumers have a lot of choices, so Disney needs to make sure that they're offering something that stands out.
Exactly. They need to differentiate themselves from the competition.
So it sounds like they're being pretty strategic about managing this decline of their cable business. But what about the streaming side of things? What are they doing to make sure that their content is strong enough to attract and keep subscribers?
Well, one of their key strategies has been to leverage their vast intellectual property portfolio.
Right. They own some of the biggest and most beloved franchises in the world.
Exactly. We're talking Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, National Geographic. They've got a treasure trove of content to draw from.
And they've definitely been utilizing those assets. We've seen shows like The Mandalorian and WandaVision, which have been huge hits for them.
Those shows have really tapped into the power of nostalgia and fandom.
And they've proven that these franchises can still attract a massive audience.
But there's always a risk of relying too heavily on these established properties.
Right. What happens if people get tired of superheroes and space operas?
Or what if they oversaturate the market with too many sequels and spin-offs?
Franchise fatigue is a real thing.
Exactly.
Mm.
So Disney needs to make sure that they're not just relying on the old, but that they're also developing fresh, original content.
And they have had some success with that as well.
Yeah, The Bear and Only Murders in the Building are great examples of shows that have broken through and gained critical acclaim.
They've shown that Disney Plus can be more than just a home for Marvel and Star Wars.
Right, they can tell different kinds of stories, appeal to a wider audience.
It's about striking that balance between the familiar and the new.
Exactly, and that's something that all the streaming platforms are grappling with.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about the content.
Content is key.
If you don't have shows that people want to watch, then you're not going to succeed.
No matter how fancy your platform is or how many features you offer.
So Disney needs to keep investing in high-quality content, both from their existing franchises and from new original ideas.
And they need to make sure that their platform is user-friendly and engaging.
Right, because the competition is fierce out there.
Netflix is still the dominant player, but there's so many other platforms vying for attention.
Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, plus HBO Max, the list goes on.
It's a crowded market, and it's only going to get more competitive.
So Disney Plus needs to keep innovating, keep evolving to stay ahead of the game.
And they need to keep listening to their audience to understand what they want.
Because ultimately, it's the viewers who will decide whether Disney Plus succeeds or fails.
Exactly. They hold the power in this equation.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, it's a story that's still being written.
And we'll be here to cover it every step of the way. It's wild to think that Disney Plus could end up influencing not just entertainment, but, global culture.
Yeah, it's a lot of power.
It is a lot of power, and with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah.
But before we, crown them king of the streaming world,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about what they need to do to really solidify that position.
Okay.
Because there are some things they're going to have to keep innovating on.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think one of the biggest things is content.
Of course, content is always king.
Always king. And, they've got this amazing library of classics.
Right.
Which is great, but they can't just coast on that forever.
No, they've got to keep things fresh.
Right.
Get people excited.
And they have started experimenting with different approaches.
Yeah, like what have you seen?
Oh, the live-action remakes.
Oh, yeah.
Of the animated films.
Some of those have been really good.
Yeah. The Lion King was visually stunning.
Yeah.
But some people felt like it lacked the heart of the original.
Right. I think there's always going to be that debate with those remakes.
Yeah.
Like, are they just cash grabs or are they actually adding something new?
Right. Are they trying to, appeal to a new generation, or are they just trying to, rehash the same old stuff?
Yeah, it's a tough balance to strike.
It is. But, it shows that they're at least trying to find ways to update those classic stories.
Mm-hmm.
And, another thing they've been doing is expanding those beloved franchises
Right.
with spin-offs and sequels.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian,
Oh, huge hit.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, they're breathing new life into those universes.
Yeah. But is that a sustainable model in the long run?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, how many spin-offs and sequels can you really make
Yeah.
before people start to get tired of it?
Right. It's like at some point you got to come up with some new ideas.
Yeah. You don't want to just be recycling the same old stuff.
Right. And you don't want to alienate fans who are looking for something original.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to keep pushing the boundaries, keep surprising people.
So it's a tightrope walk for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, they have shown that they're willing to dip their toes into more mature content.
Yeah, with shows like Daredevil.
The Bear.
Right.
Which have been really well received.
Yeah, those shows have definitely pushed the boundaries of what we expect from Disney.
Yeah, it's a far cry from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Definitely.
But it shows that they're trying to cater to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
People who are looking for something a little bit edgier.
Right. They're recognizing that they can't just rely on the family-friendly image anymore.
Right, they got to grow with their audience.
Exactly.
But, beyond content, the user experience is also super important.
Oh, absolutely.
If the platform itself isn't user-friendly,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to matter how good the shows are.
People aren't going to stick around.
Right, so how does Disney Plus stack up against the competition in that regard?
Well, I think they've made a lot of improvements since they first launched.
Okay.
The platform is pretty intuitive now. The streaming quality is good.
Okay.
They offer features like parental controls, multiple profiles, offline viewing.
Yeah, those are all pretty standard these days.
Right. Those are the must-haves.
The table stakes.
Exactly. But I think to really compete with the big players like Netflix, they need to keep innovating.
Okay. What kind of innovations are we talking about?
Well, Netflix is known for its personalized recommendations.
Yeah.
It's really good at suggesting shows that you might like based on your viewing history.
Mm.
And it's also seamless across devices.
Yeah.
You could start watching something on your phone and then pick up right where you left off on your TV.
Right.
So Disney Plus needs to make sure that it's offering that same level of convenience and personalization.
So they got to up their tech game a little bit.
Yeah, they got to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And, one thing that Disney has that a lot of these other platforms don't is this incredible network of interconnected businesses.
Right.
They've got the theme parks, the cruise lines, the merchandise in the international markets.
It's a whole empire.
It's like a whole world.
Yeah.
And they could really use that to create this really immersive brand experience.
How so?
Well, imagine exclusive content for theme park visitors.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Or tie-ins with their merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a certain toy and it unlocks something on Disney Plus.
I like that.
Or they could use Disney Plus to promote upcoming releases
Mm-hmm.
and events across all their platforms.
So it's like a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, like a 360-degree Disney experience.
They could really create something special with that.
Yeah, it's almost like a real-life Disney metaverse.
Wow.
A world that extends beyond the screen and into the real world.
That's a powerful vision.
It is, but it would take a lot of coordination and a really clear vision to pull it off.
Definitely. It's a massive undertaking.
Yeah, but I mean, they've done some pretty amazing things in the past.
True.
So who knows what they're capable of in the future?
It's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is. It's a really interesting time to be following this story.
So what do you think, what's the future hold for Disney Plus?
I think they've got a really good shot at becoming one of the dominant players in the streaming world.
Okay.
They've got the legacy, the brand recognition, the resources, and they're starting to show that they're willing to innovate and take risks.
Right. They're not just resting on their laurels.
Exactly.
But it's going to be a tough road ahead.
Oh, yeah, the competition is fierce.
The landscape is constantly changing.
But I think they're up for the challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really fun deep dive into the world of Disney Plus.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Me too. We've seen them overcome some early stumbles. They've had some big successes. And now they're facing this whole new set of challenges as they try to navigate this rapidly evolving streaming landscape.
It's a dynamic industry.
It is. And, it's a reminder that even in a world of data and algorithms, it's still the power of storytelling that really connects with people.
Yep.
And Disney, with its long history of storytelling, is in a really unique position to thrive in this new era of entertainment.
Yeah, I think they've got a bright future ahead of them.
I think so, too. Well, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Disney Plus.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the ins and outs of this fascinating platform. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, keep watching.